Welcome to Rethinking Parenting. My name is Cristina Young, and I teach parents of teenagers. Join me here on Fridays to learn practical tools, strategies, and scripts designed to help you manage the challenges of raising teens in today's complex world. Hi there. Welcome back to Rethinking Parenting with me, Cristina Young. I'm excited to tell you about today's episode. It's called Welcome to Holland, a conversation about acceptance. A delightful woman named Vicky Shusterman carved out time from her busy schedule as a partner in a huge law firm to join me for this conversation. Vicky is in one of my parenting groups. She has 2 teenage daughters, and you will enjoy her company as much as I did. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to Rethinking Parenting. I'm so excited because I have Vicky Shusterman here today. She's my guest, and Vicky is in one of my parenting groups. She's a lawyer. She's a busy, busy mom, and I'm just delighted that she's sharing her time. We decided to have a conversation about acceptance. So the title of this episode is Welcome to Holland, a conversation about acceptance. And I want to start by asking you, Vicky, can you just tell us a little bit about your family?
Yes. I'm married it's going on my 20th year of marriage,
Ooh,
which is...
Congrats.
Thanks. Exciting.
Very.
Surreal, I would say some days. Mother of 2 humans, 2 girls who are both teenagers and in high school, and a puppy. Well, not even a puppy. She's almost 5, but my 3rd baby, also a girl. So
also
my husband's really outnumbered.
A lot of estrogen.
Yes. Estrogen on some days, as you know. That's me.
That's you.
Full-time working mom.
Yeah. Vicky's very busy, but Vicky's been in my Monday parenting group for almost a year now, and we have always just hit it off, and she's always contributing excellent observations and asking great questions. So I just was super excited when you agreed to be on the podcast. So I'm going to start by reading an essay, and I have used this essay entitled Welcome to Holland. It's by Emily Pearl Kingsley. I've used it I would estimate for probably 12 years. I've used it in every parenting group I've run. I've used it in a lot of individual sessions. It's so poignant, so I'm just going to read it. I'm often asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability, to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it, to imagine how it would feel. It's like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and you make your wonderful plans. The Colosseum, the Michelangelo, David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life, I've dreamt of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to some horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy a new guidebook, and you must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills. Holland has tulips. Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy. And they're all bragging about what a wonderful time they had there. And for the rest of your life, you will say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. The pain of that will never, ever go away because the loss of that dream is a very significant loss. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't get to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, very lovely things about Holland.
Always makes me cry.
Always. I mean, it's amazing to me that I'm not tired of it, but it's so poignant, right?
Yes.
So tell me what you think about while you're hearing me read it, Vicky.
I think we talk about, it's not about the child, it's about the parent in our parenting group pretty much every session.
Yeah.
And coming to the realization of that and dealing with that. And certainly I'm fortunate because it's not, there's not an extreme situation, but the message behind what you just read is relevant to all of us in different ways because we
absolutely,
just like marriage, you kind of paint this picture, whether it's realistic or not. If it's your dream, it becomes your reality, or you want it to be your reality. And sorting through that is really something has its challenges, for sure.
I agree. I think it's one of the most challenging parts about parenting is letting go of the visions that you had of your child and acknowledging, wow, it turns out I have very little control of how this whole thing unfolds for them. It's very humbling.
And hard. Humbling for sure. Hard because, and you and I've talked about this on occasion, particularly when you make certain life choices as an adult and the consequence of that, and replaying that at different stages of your child's life and thinking, well, if I went left instead of right, would the outcome be different?
Yes.
And as my kids get older and I have less and less control, if I even had control to begin with, but less and less control, I struggle with that probably, 80% of my time.
Yeah.
What could have been? What should I have done? Would it be different?
Can you tell us a little bit about that struggle and the different roads that you refer to?
Yeah, I think, I chose to work full time in a very intense, time-demanding job where I don't have a lot of control because I'm effectively in a client service business as a lawyer. And so my clients and the deals dictate it, and I love it. It fills so much of me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the ways that it fills you? Like what needs does that meet? I
don't want to cry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Crying is allowed in this studio.
I'm going to try to keep it together. What it fills me, I've worked really hard, and it's a lot of external recognition of that work. Especially in big law, there's markers, and when you hit those markers, it's like, you're doing well. You're doing well. And that's something that's important to me. Maybe I keep thinking, like, when I turned 50, I would care less about external markers. I'm not there yet. As I tell you, like, you're stuck with us forever. I don't know, as long as possible to help manage it. But all kidding aside, so, like, that part of it, I like the transactional aspect of it because I'm a transactional lawyer. I love the mix. It's, like, really intellectually stimulating. It's exciting. There's the endorphins. It's like my workout. Like, if I can have a problem and then now I'm senior enough where, I get a call and I have to solve it, it's like a high. It's like a runner's high that people talk about. I don't run. Yeah. But, like, the view of it, and it's really, really meaningful and rewarding to me.
Yeah. It's gratifying.
100% gratifying.
And so what I want to make sure of when you talk like this is that you recognize how important that is to you, and I don't want you to devalue that. I don't want you to diminish it or be dismissive of it. It's real. It's what matters to you, and therefore it's important.
Yes.
So let's talk about the conflict and tell me a little bit about how does that present a conflict for you?
I think there's two conflicts. When my kids were younger, I had very little time to develop them intellectually. Partly because, they had bedtime. And if I couldn't make it to bedtime, we lived in Manhattan, it was the commute, all of it, even though we lived in the city. That element of it, it was like I outsourced it. And
well, hang on. And the person that you outsourced it to, was that person doing what you hoped to do? What was it, reading stories at bedtime?
No. look, with everyone, and I always say this, I think there's not one single person, whether it's your husband, whether it's your friend, whatever it is, you need lots of different people to bring things into your life. Mm-hmm. At that time and the decisions we made, my husband was traveling a lot. We needed someone who could do lots of different things. Mm-hmm. And even if I was home, let's say we didn't have help and I was home, I know that I too, you can't do laundry and cook and clean and be on the floor for 2 hours playing games.
No.
As much as
No. It's not realistic.
It's not realistic.
Yeah.
But when we talk about dreams and like the fantasy world, that was
your fantasy world.
That was my fantasy.
Well, let me ask you a different question. Is it a true statement that your kids had one consistent caregiver through their childhood?
True. Very true. And yes, they did. And they were cared for very well. Is it, again, I think it's about the standard. I think that's the biggest struggle. It's like, what is the standard? And part of it has to do, as you know, with like my upbringing and my own personal experience. And I felt like I could have done even more if my parents had more resources. And here in this Holland journey, I think like, okay, well, now I am educated in the United States. My kids are not immigrants. The sky's the limit in every sense of the world, but there's still a limit, or their desires may not be my desires.
So there's two things I want to get back to. It's always a complex conversation, but I love it. So one thing is, had you chosen to be a stay-at-home mom, I don't think because of your intellectual capabilities that you would have felt fulfilled and energized and motivated to be the best version of you. Is that accurate?
I think so. I think so because I am not equipped in those ways. Like, I'd like to think that I am and that I could force myself into that. And on occasion, like when I'm around younger children, like I enjoy, 20 minutes.
A little dip into it. Yeah.
Of make-believe and reading a book. And I have some friends who are younger than my husband and I, and they have younger kids. So I get a little bit of taste of it. And maybe
But it wasn't necessarily your strength. And if we ask ourselves, what is the smartest thing for a mom to do? This is my belief. The smartest thing for a mom to do is play to her strengths. So I would argue, what a massive benefit to your children that you played to your strengths. Your strengths were, I have this intellectual firepower that I want to use in my pursuit of being part of a law practice. That's amazing. And we can talk about all of the things that you modeled for your kids. Mm-hmm. I am an independent woman who works and has a great salary, and I'm enjoying all of these intellectual pursuits. Did you provide the necessary consistent care to your children? Of course you did. So while you may not have been there as many hours as you would have liked, I would argue that model would never have suited you, and that you would have been a mother who felt either impatient or intolerant or somewhat irritated in that full-time role because it wasn't where your strengths necessarily were.
It's funny because and I don't know if I ever even said this to you, but growing up, and really into my 20s, before I was married even, I pictured myself as a mother more than I even pictured myself as a married person.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Oh, and that, like, when I read this passage, or when you read this passage to me, it's like, yes, the child aspect of it, but almost it's like if I'm Italy and Holland within myself, which I know maybe is like too psychological, but
not at all. But tell us how you moved into the passion for the law then.
I'm really hyper-competitive, and that's what drives me. And there's elements, like if I'm doing self-analysis, which I have no business doing, but if I'm self-analyzing, there's that element of competition. And just like, and listen, at work, I can only control so much also. Like I can do my best, but there are things that are outside of my control. And it's not like a straight line of perfection. I'm realistic about it. But I always feel and have felt historically like if you work hard enough, you will achieve X, whatever X is. This is something, there's no X, like there's no box.
There's no finish line.
I know.
It's super annoying.
Originally, I joined the group for just no. There's just more layers. There's just more layers. But I think that's a constant struggle, like the sort of whatever. I'm not good at sports analogies, but like reflecting on the game again and saying, well, if I did this, it would have been different, knowing full well intellectually that it's impossible.
It's not
like
the case.
There's no.
So let me offer this, and you tell me if this makes sense. I think it sounds like what you've experienced in your career is what you just described. I set a goal, I work my ass off, I achieve the goal. That's so gratifying. And now the next goal is this. And now I control all of the variables and I work and I achieve it. Awesome, gratifying, so intellectually stimulated, enjoying all of the external markers. Now here's my next goal. So there are a lot of variables in your career that you can control, and it's hugely gratifying. And the truth is, especially at this stage in parenting, the older the kids get, the fewer variables you can control. And the more you have to do a deep, deep dive into acceptance. Acceptance of, it turns out the story is my girls ended up like this. And perhaps in my dreams when I was in my 20s and dreaming of being pregnant one day, I dreamt of them ending up like this. And it's a slow, gradual, humbling letting go of what your dream was and realizing no matter how hard you work, you cannot control the variables in parenting. And therein, I think, lies some of your frustration.
Oh, it's super frustrating. It's super, super, in every way, it's frustrating. And even now, and I think we've talked about this a couple of times, not related to my kids in particular, but in our session about, as your kids get older, unless something really horrible is happening, you're not calling school. And they have to either suffer the consequences or have a conversation with a teacher or an administrator and solve it for themselves. And I guess if I reflect on that part of it, I did a good job because my kids are good advocates for themselves.
So let's stay with this for a second because this popped in my head earlier. I do think this is a truth for moms who work outside the home, that their kids tend to be better at self-advocating. They tend to be better at helping themselves because they don't have somebody around them helping them all the time. So yet another argument for full-time working moms.
I think I'm going to be cured after this podcast.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I'd miss you too much.
Okay.
I don't want to be.
I want to read you another, just to get a different angle on this. So have you ever heard of someone named Dr. Shefali Sayberry?
I think I don't know if you mentioned it.
Yeah, she's alternative. She's very interesting. So she wrote 2 books that have had a pretty big impact on me. One is called The Conscious Parent, and one is called The Awakened Family. And they're from a while ago. They're nothing current. They're nothing trendy. But here's something Dr. Shefali says. She says, the truth is that your child's path will differ from yours. Can you accept them fully, even when they walk in a direction you cannot understand? So that's a really, really big question to contemplate. But I want to continue and kind of get into the weeds on this. So she says acceptance of our children requires a few concrete things. Number 1, an awareness of how we are feeling within ourselves. So this we've talked about ad nauseum in my groups. That's the 99% of parenting is about the adult and not the child, right? We always have to be aware of what emotions are we bringing into the situation. Yeah. So that's number 1, the awareness of how we're feeling. Number 2 is ownership of these feelings. And what she means by that is I own them and I recognize I need to stay in my lane over here with my feelings and my expectations and my ridiculous views of what I hoped might be for you. And you, my child, are way over there in your lane. And we live and operate in these two separate lanes. And I think sometimes when I first explain that to parents are like, wait, what? We were all in one big happy boat together in the same lane. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, the sooner you can get out of the boat and get back in your lane and let your child be in their lane, the happier everybody is. But that in itself it's a big obstacle, right? Okay, the third thing Shefali says in terms of acceptance of our children, she says a detachment from them so we do not project these feelings over here in our lane onto the child over there in their lane. She talks about we need to live in these separate lanes. So let me stop for a second, Vicky, and ask you, how is it going trying to live in separate lanes from your daughters?
Not very well.
Or are you all together in the same lane?
We are definitely in the same lane.
Okay.
I think my husband is in his own lane.
Actually, on a different planet.
Maybe on a different planet of like intensity, but
yes.
Yes, he doesn't seem to worry to the same extent that I do about all these variables, none of which
most of them don't.
It's a gift. I wish
yeah. And it's annoying.
Both.
Yeah.
I'm jealous, actually. I'm super
oh my
jealous.
God, because it's so pleasant on their planet where they don't worry. It's lovely over there.
Yeah. I've asked him, it's a gift that he gets to go to work and compartmentalize.
It must be so liberating and must be so much access to so much more real estate in their brain.
All of it. Right? Joy, I think.
Joy. That's called joy.
Yeah. Simplicity, whatever.
Yeah.
But so I think for me, especially given the ages of my girls, they are in high school. They have a lot of big things coming up because they're in their early years in high school. And, will it dictate the rest of their life? I know that's not true, but it feels that way in that moment. What college, how well you do, the impact of that, what your social circle will look like, high anxiety events for them, I'm sure, probably fueled by my anxiety around it. And knowing that, there's only so many variables. The reality, there's only very few variables. We could maybe help with some tools, but at the end of the day.
Well, and how much do you buy into the idea that you set the tone for their anxiety and their stress? Meaning, if mom's it's a lot, but you're going to be fine. Do you believe that? Are you doing that?
When I was in Italy, I was, but not in Holland. I wish. So I do believe, and I kind of go back to this for when they were much younger. And I read somewhere where, if your kid falls and they scrape their knee and you start, obsessing over it and freaking out, that they take that and they see it. And even if it didn't hurt, they have a reaction.
Yes.
I am reminding myself of that. Because of what I do professionally and I solve problems, it's hard for me to turn that off. And so even now, they'll come and, they'll have an issue at school, sometimes with friends. I'm not going to call them mom. I get it. They're, 15 years old. That would be
old for that.
As they tell me, social suicide. What are you doing, lady?
Yeah.
But my instinct is I want to call and I'm going to just fix it. I'm going to fix it.
Well, and that's where I would suggest that you even think of the lane that you're meant to live in as your mom lane, but it's also your lawyer lane. And because it's so gratifying to you, I imagine, in your work setting when you fix a problem, and you're also very good at it. And so, of course, you want to put that lawyer hat on in your home and say to your girls, I got this. I'm all set. Don't worry, I'm going to fix this for you, because that's what I do for a living and I'm really good at it. And we've talked in our group for sure about every time you fix a problem for a kid, you're denying them the opportunity to learn how to problem solve themselves. So much of your work, unfortunately, and this is the same for so many of us, It's doing the mental gymnastics, which is exhausting, of keeping your own self in check. And it's why me, Vicky, and I talk a lot about visual things. I'm constantly visualizing my lane way over here and asking myself, and I'm reaching desperately into there, like, no, I got this for, like, no. Back in your own lane. And then we've talked about, well, okay, how do you help a kid who comes home, a teenager who comes home? Oh, I'm so upset about it. I can't believe she didn't invite me to her Sweet 16 or whatever. It's always the starting with, do you want some advice? Do you want to just tell me about it? Do you want to tell me about a plan you've already figured out? It's getting their permission before anything. Do you want my help? And a lot of times they're like, no, I just want to vent about it. And then again, you get in your lane, you put your seatbelt on, you're like, I don't want to stay in my lane, I want to fix it for you. But allowing them to fix it themselves is how they grow.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question.
Please.
I think the hardest, well, there's so many hardest for me, so I can't even say that to be true. But, the duct tape, you've talked that's another. I'm just going to quote you back to yourself.
That's fine. Yes.
This is just indicative of how valuable all of your advice is. It's just, but it's true. It's true. So there are those moments where I should be asking them, like, what do you need from me?
Yes. If anything.
Yes. Or do you want me to leave? And my anxiety takes over and I need to know, like, in that moment. This happened last night. So I think that for me, like I may have not totally come to terms with all these other things we've talked about, but I'm working on, and I recognize that some of it I just really permanently need to let go or find a place for, or compartmentalize, be like my husband in that way. But those moments I find, even though we've been working together for a year, excruciating, and I screw it up almost every single time.
Okay, I want to address this. It's such a good question, Vicky. Okay, what I want you to do is, when you feel, because it's almost a palpable feeling that takes over, right? When you're like, I want to fix this, but I know I'm not supposed to, name it out loud. So I'm actually saying, to which daughter does this occur with more, maybe?
Honestly, or both in different ways.
Both in different ways. So you're going to say to whichever daughter it is, in this moment, I want to name aloud this excruciating desire to solve this and fix this for you, but I also know that that's bad parenting. So I'm going to step aside and put my metaphorical duct tape on my mouth, sweetie. You're going to see me over here in my lane, duct tape. You're literally naming aloud the mental gymnastics that we are working on in group.
Okay.
Is that doable?
I think so. I'm going to try it, because just reminding myself and doing the mantra, it, fails pretty much 100%
it's hard work.
Of the time.
And you're swimming upstream.
Yeah.
You have a habit, like most of us, that has been ingrained for many years. And now, due to these conversations that we're having weekly in the group, I'm upending your habit, and that's uncomfortable. And also, it's never fun to go cold turkey on something. So I'm saying, instead of going cold turkey, always, when you don't know what to do, you can just name aloud what you're feeling.
Okay. I'm going to try that. I'll come back. I'm sure we're going to talk about it on a Monday.
We will talk about it. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go back, and I want to just prompt us with something else. This is another line from Dr. Shefali. She's fascinating because she makes me uncomfortable in a very good way. She says, where's the line between unconditional acceptance of our kids and trying to shape a decent kid with good values and standards? Are you asking me to let them unfold as is without any feedback or guidance? Okay. And she sort of answers herself here and says, well, this is the very messy core of parenting. I can't tell you where the line is. There's no clean prescriptive way to determine how much to push, how much to coddle, when to move into acceptance, when to give constructive criticism. This is the work. And if I pause and say, what is one of maybe top 2 questions I'm asked ever in my entire practice? It is that. Parents love to ask, can you tell me exactly when I'm supposed to push and when I'm supposed to cuddle? And it couldn't be more murky and like filled with a million different variables of the culture of the family and the character of the kid. But I love her next suggestion. You've heard me say this many times. Dr. Shefali says we have to stay curious. We have to keep asking questions in order to know our kids as well as possible while they are trying to push us away as they evolve. So she goes on and she says, maybe one filter we can use is this. And I want to do this with you. I want to do a live sample here, a live example. If you observe something that you don't like in your child, you can ask yourself these 2 questions. 1, do I dislike this trait because it is so unfamiliar and so different from how I am? I don't recognize it as familiar or born of me, and I like when I recognize myself in my kid. That's one, and I think that's really powerful, and I think it applies to you. The second one, and then we're going to dig into this, or do I dislike this trait in my child because I deem it to be unfavorable, undignified, or that of a lazy, unmotivated, not smart, not interesting, not creative, not athletic, selfish, boring, fill in the blank person? So let's back this up and let's run this through you, Vicky, as our example. Okay, so if we go back and we say to you, Vicky, is there something you've observed in your child that you don't particularly adore? Is there a trait that you wish might be slightly different?
Slightly different, yes.
Slightly different, okay.
Slightly different.
And if I then ask you, okay, keeping that trait in mind, do you dislike this trait because you deem it unfavorable, undignified, or, do you deem this unfamiliar? It's not of you. It's not similar to you.
Certainly not similar. Very different.
Very different. Me. And when you think about this trait that is very different from you, do you feel some of that pang of, you're not born of me when you exhibit this trait, and that I don't like how unfamiliar that feels?
It's confusing. It's certainly confusing. I don't know if it's so extreme that it elicits that type of reaction. Okay. But it's definitely confusing because I don't understand how it adds up.
You don't understand where it comes from.
No, I don't. Really, in this point, like I look to my husband too. It's some of these things are completely different from both of us.
Both of you, right. And so you probably run the thought in your head, which I have, which most of us have, of like, hang on, you're 50% him, 50% me, but this trait doesn't resemble either one of us. So who was with the mailman? Like, how did this happen?
Yes.
Right?
How did the wires get crossed?
Yes.
In certain categories that I don't get it. Like it's like 2 + 2 should equal 4, and it doesn't. It doesn't.
And this is very confounding to us as parents because I think we don't talk about it a lot, but I think we take great, great pride when we see something in our child that is positive. And I know in our family, I will literally say aloud to my kids, oh, that's from me. Those allergies that you have that's from Dad. Yeah. That's not from me. But your ability to be organized and make great lists, that's from me. It's very satisfying to own that positive trait. So when we see a trait that we don't deem positive and we don't see it in either one of us, it's confusing, and it's the thing that catapults us into the land of acceptance because there's no other option.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, what other
not long term. There's no other option because the most important for me is to have a great relationship with my children. I should have said that early on. Of course. Fundamentally, I see it and I want it to continue. And so far, I want to knock on something, but it's been, do they tell me 100%? Probably not. And I don't think they should.
No.
But if I can, it seems like I get 90%
Yeah.
or thereabouts.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that. And my daughters have a good relationship, a very close relationship, which is the most amazing. When I think of the most, those things outweigh everything.
Right.
It's just, you don't focus on the good stuff. I should, but I don't.
Well, if we're going back to what this episode is about and what you and I are working on, and so many of us in the group are working on, is unconditional acceptance. And if we go and pull the lens out and say, okay, if our goal is unconditional acceptance and we're noticing this thing that is not like us, it's not like us, it's not like our husband, then our job, like Dr. Shefali says, is to get really, really curious and to do a deep dive rather than trying to shun that trait, shun the kid who has that trait, try to change that trait into something that's more familiar. Our job is to get deeply curious and ask them all about, I wonder where that comes from. What do you make of that? What do you like about that trait? What do you not like about that trait? How do you manage that trait? Get into the weeds. And obviously with teenagers, it's all about timing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of times when they're not open to questions. But imagine if you did a deep dive into that unrecognizable trait. Don't you think that shows that trait and that child respect?
Yes, on the respect part.
Mm-hmm.
This, I think, was 2 sessions ago where we talked about that, like motivation and kids. And I've been thinking a lot about it, actually, in terms of how I interface with my children and this idea that I'm your parent and I know better. And maybe that's how I was raised. That my parents' generation was very much like, you don't talk back. These are the rules. It's either this
different
or the highway.
Generation.
Very different. Yep. And I'm raising them in a different way, in a way where we do have much more communication. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm in that perfect, like I will sit there and there's this like TikTok trend, right? Like say and no, don't judge or whatever. I'm judging.
You're judging.
I'm not there yet, but I appreciate this approach of curiosity and trying to figure it out. And maybe they don't even know yet themselves because they're still evolving. They're young on the teenage side.
Well, let's talk about, usually there's 2 options for most decisions or most ways we proceed. So if we say option 1 is, I recognize this difference. There's a trait in you and it's not from me and it feels very other and very different. So there are 2 options. I can get very curious about it and learn about it and come to understand and even respect it. What is the other option?
Well, in my mind, I would think...
I know what you're going to say.
You asked, so I feel like I need to answer. In my mind, I'm like, okay, let's recognize and let's fix it.
Exactly. So let's make this really crystal clear, because
I think Dr. Shefali would approve.
No. I think how Vicky is answering is how we all answer if we're not involved in intentional parenting. I think Vicky's answer is, I notice this trait that is other. I don't like it. It's not of me. I don't approve of it. And therefore, it is my job as parent to fix it. And I think what Dr. Shefali is arguing and what I'm arguing is maybe not. Maybe it's not your job to fix it. And in fact, maybe you don't have the ability to fix something in your child. And what happens in your parenting if you come to a place where you accept, I can't fix this kid. This is the way this kid is. How does that land with you?
Early stages. I'm early stage. I mean, I'm being on. It would be great. Like, I wish I could wave a magic wand for myself and just do that. And part of it is I'm not ready yet in some ways. I'm not ready because I think maybe a chance to improve it.
Well, I want to say a couple of things here. One is sometimes we hold on to the hope that we can fix other people. And sometimes my answer is you can soften the rough edges of the trait that is not from you, not born of you, that you dislike. You can soften the rough edges. So I'm good with that. The thing is that by the time our kids are in high school, we've most likely already attempted to soften the rough edges. And they most likely have shown us through their choices and behaviors, yet there's no softening here. This is who I am.
Right.
So I want to ask you a next question, Vicky.
Okay.
What happens to you as the parent if you accept, turns out this is the way she is? What story do you tell yourself about people who have this other trait that is not born of you? What happens in your mind? What are those people like?
I mean, they're wonderful in many ways. They are wonderful, wonderful people and give a lot to the world around them, which is valuable. I maybe don't prioritize that as much as I should, but it is a wonderful thing. I think the stress for me is the unknown of, like, what does the real world look like?
Do you believe that if you accept this trait that is other, that this child will have a harder time in life?
Yes.
Okay.
For sure.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
It only took 45 minutes.
We got to the nugget, but that's what I have suspected.
Yes.
And so when you proceed with that belief system, I want to suggest to you that it is undermining of your child. That you believe if you allow them to continue as is with this character trait that is not born of you, and you are constantly trying to rescue them from it or fix it or force it to go away, the underlying message is, I don't think you're good enough like that. And I don't think you'll be able to manage yourself like that and succeed like that. And that's, I know, not ever the message that we want to send, but I just want to give you a second to respond to that. Do you see that?
I understand how that could be perceived or viewed that way.
Even, and I'm not talking, you're never broadcasting this. It's all an undercurrent. It's the underbelly of your pushing and prodding and changing and rescuing and fixing. The underbelly is you're not good enough the way you are.
Yeah, I'm probably sometimes broadcasting it.
Okay.
Not in those exact words.
Okay. So I want to do...
But that's a fair point. I understand that.
I want to do this in our final minutes together, and there might need to be a whole part 2 to this.
Anytime.
I want to do this. I want to ask you a question, and this has to do with my belief system as a parent, but also as a parent educator. And I've rested on this belief for many years. I believe that we get each child that we get for a reason. So your daughters could have landed in a different family. And I'm talking woo-woo universe here.
Understood.
But they landed in your family. And my 3 kids landed in my family. And my belief is that is because if I'm open and I'm curious, I'm going to see the lessons that I still need to learn for myself as a human on this earth. And these kids that I have, again, if I'm open, they're here to teach me these lessons and help finalize some of the steps in these lessons. So if I ask you, Vicky, in our final minutes here, what lessons might your daughter or daughters plural be here to teach you? How do you think you could answer that?
That I can't control everything.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how hard I try or how much work I put into it, I can't control it.
And how's that feel?
Crappy.
Exactly.
I hate it.
I
hate it every day.
And it's quite a juxtaposition to your work lane.
Yes.
Because in your work lane, you control the variables, you control the effort, you exert your intellect, and you succeed. And that's beautiful and satisfying. And in your parent lane, you're like, well, let me just apply the same formula and I will reap the same success. And the truth is, it doesn't work that way. And it's so annoying.
It's so annoying.
It's so annoying.
It's really annoying.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It really is.
But more than frustrating, we can do some damage to the people who are on the receiving end of our forcing and forcing and forcing. Again, it sends the message, you're actually not good enough as you are. So let me try to force you to be something else.
Okay. We will need a part 2.
Okay. We're going to wrap up, but Vicky knows at the end of every parenting group, I don't ever let anyone just walk out. See you next week.
Yeah.
We always do the what resonated with you. What are you going to take with you from this conversation? Because I think that's important. So, Vicky, what resonated with you today?
So many things resonate, but I am going to really try the curiosity to be more curious and work on the duct tape, but really to be more curious instead of just lecturing as to what should be done and how I think it needs, whatever it is for either daughter. I'm really going to try to be curious and get into, I don't know if it's my own lane, but like far in their own. How's that? Baby
on the
steps.
edge of their
on the
lane.
Edge. That I'm going to work on.
Yeah.
I'm really going to work on that.
Great. I mean, it's baby steps. And remember, you've heard me say before, do it right 1 out of 10 times. That's all you're looking for. And see how that feels. And then that can motivate you to do it right 2 out of 10 times, right?
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
I want to say thank you so much to Vicky Shusterman for being on my podcast. It was a delight, as I knew it would be. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Loved being with you this morning.
Take care. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Rethinking Parenting. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to rate, follow, and subscribe. I read all of your comments, feedback, and suggestions, and I so appreciate them. So keep sending them in. Thank you.